Hi, I'm Brace Draper. I'm 27, and I'm married to Shelley Draper, who is just a year younger. We've been married for 5.5 years, and we're still going strong. Every marriage has its challenges, but we've learned a lot along the way. I want to tell you about how our marriage has changed over time. I came across an interesting article online about how new data from scientific satellites is changing our understanding of space. It made me think about how our knowledge is often based on books and university lectures, which can be limited in their scope. It's fascinating how new information can replace old theories. Experts who were once at the top of their field can suddenly become irrelevant. I was reading an article about the amazing universe we live in when my wife, who I've been married to for over 5 years, walked into the living room and announced that she was going on a date with a male colleague on Friday. It was unexpected and out of character. Her body language and facial expression made it clear that she was not open to objections. I find Shelley's approach to argumentation intriguing. While her logic may not always be flawless, I've been on the receiving end of her unwavering persistence on more than one occasion. She's not one to give up until she's won, and she's a formidable opponent. However, our disagreements have never been about anything as critical or dangerous as, "This topic could become a bit sensitive." She continued, "It doesn't mean I don't love you, and it shouldn't affect our relationship. However, I've found that I just want to explore my fascination, meet new men, and expand my horizons. I know this may upset you and make you feel hurt, but you should know that I will. I'll always come back to you, and I'll always be your wife. This won't affect him in any way. We're an amazing team, and I know that in the long run this could make us stronger. Who knows? Maybe I'll learn some tricks that we can share with each other to improve our time in the bedroom." I sat there. I was trying not to explode while a bunch of reaction options flashed through my mind. I could strangle her, half to death, threaten divorce, threaten bloody porridge. That was high on my list. Cry and gnash my teeth. There was that bloody mess again. I could just walk away, argue. As her scripted speech came to an end, I was sure it was scripted, practiced, and that she probably had help writing it. This was our game, Cher, which meant new rules had to be established. How do I get her to see my point of view? An old memory came to mind. I was reading about Tom Sawyer and his fence washing in that Mark Twain story. Tom made a horrible job seem appealing to his friends and got them to do his job by changing their perceptions. I realized that perception is real reality, and it changed everything. I turned away in deep thought, opened my eyes widened, and I smiled with enthusiastic approval. "That's great. I love it. Let's do it." Shelley seemed a little discouraged by my agreement and frowned a little, surprised by my reaction. She came to her senses and muttered, "Cool. I'm glad we're on the same page. I thought you might have a different opinion, but I see we're in agreement. I think we're good." She smiled, but she still looked a little puzzled. I stood up, took her hands in mine, smiled broadly, and looked her in the eye. "This is great news. I'm excited and relieved. I've met a few nice girls like you." I got the impression from our conversations at the gym that she was interested in me. I told her I'm married and not looking for an affair, but that didn't stop her. I'm looking forward to chatting with her and telling her we're open to having fun. Thanks for your help. I almost laughed at the shocked expression and sudden change in color in Shell's face. I went to the kitchen to hide my grin and said over my shoulder, "I'll get the mineral water. Would you like something yourself?" "No thanks," she replied huskily. I could hear the uncertainty in her voice. I could hear the confusion in her voice, which was a lot better than beating her to a pulp and getting away with it. I stood in front of the wall calendar and, in a low voice, voiced the plan. "Okay, let's see. Tomorrow is Wednesday, which usually comes early. I'm going to have to leave for the gym early, so I'll have time to talk to her first thing. Hopefully she's still in and hasn't gone off with someone else. Let's see if she's free this Friday. It could be really exciting. I'll make love to her to death. Yeah, that's too good. I've got to pack up my gym stuff and throw it in the car. I should probably use some good aftershave. I needed to get her started on Friday. You and me, baby. You know what I mean?" I sipped my mineral water and stared at the calendar, but I was actually paying more attention to Shell's peripheral vision and watching her frown at me. Not according to plan. She didn't say a word, but her breathing and demeanor said she wasn't happy. I was happy this wasn't in the script. I went back to the couch and pretended to keep reading the article, but I couldn't focus on a single line. I was more focused on Shelley not looking directly at her and her obvious discomfort. I hope she was pondering what to say to her. I'm sure the arguments she expected me to say were running through her head. I was thinking about how I could use this against her, but how do I say it without sounding like a hypocrite? Let her figure it out. After a while, she sighed and said, I'm tired. I think it's time for me to go to bed. Will you be up soon? Yes, I think I'll finish this article. In about half an hour, I'll be up. Good night, Shelley. She gave me a quick kiss and turned toward the stairs leading to our bedroom. She turned her head to face me and said, I love you. There was a lot of strong emotion in those words. I felt deep pain, disappointment, and sadness. This was a major turning point for us. The future looked pretty bleak for us, and there were a lot of tricky situations ahead. I was thinking about the last couple of weeks and how I'd been too trusting. I'd probably missed a few things without realizing. It was time to be more suspicious. I couldn't find any obvious signs that she was cheating, except for a few recent phone calls and text messages that were made in quiet corners of our house. When I asked about them, she said they were calls from her sister and that they were personal. I didn't question her right to privacy, but it was actually a novelty. Usually, calls to and from her sister were taken when we were sitting together and never seemed personal afterwards. She often talked about them with me and told me about family news and silly incidents that made us both laugh. There were no secrets until the last couple of weeks. She seemed to be getting more texts that made her smile or even quietly giggle. It was time to do a little investigating. While Shelley was getting ready for bed in the bathroom, I went to the computer and looked at our cell phone call records over the past 2 weeks. I noted 4 calls, and I got 6 texts on my phone from an unknown number that evening. I was just making sure it wasn't my sister's phone number in my contacts. I wrote the number down and, on a whim, tried to look it up online. Jason Mason's name came up with that number, along with his address. He lives in our town. I wrote down his address and went to Shell's employer website to log into her account. Shell works for Morrell Brothers Engineering and Design as a human resources manager. She mainly deals with time management, tracking vacations and sick days. She has access to the company's employee database, so I've helped her run specialized searches when I need to find a phone number or email. It only took me a second to find out that old Jason worked at Marpel, and had only been there for 7 months. That was all I needed to know. He was calling and texting. My wife and Jason were definitely not siblings. If I found out that she had already cheated on me with him, it would be over for sure. I logged into her email account. The fact that her password hadn't changed made me feel a little better. There were no emails from him. From Jason, but when I searched the text of the emails for his name, there were a few that mentioned him. It seems that a woman named Darcizers was informing Shell that Jason was asking for her personal information and that he found my wife attractive and wanted to hook up with her. Darcy thought Jason was cute and encouraged Shelley to play with him. There were lots of comments about flirting in the emails they sent each other. Darcy kept on pushing Shelley to go ahead with it. Shelley said she hadn't agreed to have sex with him, but Darcy was. She was pushing him to go for it this weekend, which was supposed to be the first date to see where it would lead. I'd hang around, picking up my gym clothes and folding them in the car for tomorrow. I would go to the gym, but more for looks than anything else. I got ready. I went to bed and spent a restless night thinking about our future. The next morning, Wednesday, I got up early and headed to the gym, acting as if I was happy to be there. I worked out at the gym without talking to anyone in particular and headed to work as usual. I tried not to think about what to do next at home, but I was unable to concentrate. I got home and worked out at the gym, then went to work. I still didn't know what to do next or where Shelley and I stood. I drove home and parked in the garage. Shelley's car was already there. I touched the hood and found it was still warm, so she'd arrived shortly before me. I took a deep breath and started playing out my new role. I opened the door and greeted my wife with a smile. I said, "Hey baby," and headed for the bedroom. I took off my tie and jacket as I went. As I walked up the stairs, I said, "Shelley, can we talk about this weekend? I think we should set some ground rules for the future, so we're on the same page?" Shelley replied, "Yes, I think we should talk. I've already ordered Chinese food delivery. I hope you'll be satisfied with it." Her voice trembled as if she was thrown off balance. The evening promised to be interesting, spiced with poignant moments. I could already feel the tension, both mine and hers, back in the kitchen. Now I was in jeans and a t-shirt. I noticed that the food had arrived, so we started filling plates from small cardboard containers as we worked. I began, since you had time to think and plan this weekend, and I had just learned about our new relationship model. I sketched out some notes and even made a flowchart. I laughed. Yes, you can remove a boy from programming, but you can't take away a boy's ability to program, to make sure we don't get on each other's nerves and want to kill each other. I've written down some rules that I'd like to discuss with you. Let's work through and come to an agreement. We need to agree on a way forward. I don't want our extramarital relationship to ruin us. Shelley took a sharp breath, and I saw that she was looking at me with wide open eyes, which I ignored. We can talk about that. Let me know what you mean. Well, for one, I'm sure this is important. There are no games here in our house. I just think we should respect that this is our space and only our space. Secondly, there's no disrespecting each other when we make love to our partners. She AED again. That's just rude. If we don't set some boundaries, it'll hurt us in the long run. Third, we need to make sure our shared activities or plans come first. We shouldn't disrupt plans or activities that we have just to fit in with a lover. And we shouldn't be mean. Lies and meanness will ultimately kill us. These are just some of the thoughts that have occurred to me. I'd like to mutually agree on some boundaries as reasonable adults. How's that sound? We were already seated at the table, and Shelley was just choking on her food. It seems reality was becoming hard to digest. Good. I have my doubts about all of this. I don't know, it's getting too complicated. At that moment, Shelley said quietly, looking down at her plate. My phone rang, and I looked at the screen, raising my eyebrows in feigned recognition. Hold that thought, I said. I need to answer it. I'll be right back. I quickly made my way into our office. I closed the door to our small office so that no one could overhear me. I set my phone to record and answered it in a muffled voice. Hello? I said. Hello, Mr. Draper, the caller said. This is the IRS, and we have discovered that you owe us $1,330. Hello, I'm so glad you called. I'm really excited about Friday night. What time would be good for you? I looked at the light shining under the door and noticed two shadows. Shelley was listening. What Friday are you talking about? This is serious. You owe us $1,362. $326. If we don't get paid immediately, we're going to have to call the police to arrest you. That's fine with me. I'll pick you up at your apartment and take you to a nice restaurant for dinner. And then we can go back to your place for the rest of the night. What kind of food do you like? I'm glad you're still interested in being my love buddy. This isn't a date. It's just that we're going to have to call the police to arrest you unless you go out and buy one. 00026. I've got a few gift cards up my sleeve. Give us the card numbers and we'll get started. Is this some kind of joke? We can skip dinner and just eat at your place, but I'd like to treat you right. That's why I suggested we have dinner somewhere nice for the whole weekend. We can work that out too if we decide that's what we both want. I don't see a problem with that. What's the matter with you? When the police come, I'll tell them to teach you some manners. This is very serious. You'll be sorry. I laughed. All right. All right. I promise to treat you right in your bed. The speaker is very frustrated. The police are on their way. You're going to be sorry you ever messed with me in the first place. By the time you get out of jail, you'll be an old man. Thanks for calling. You made my evening. I can hardly wait for Friday. Sleep well and dream of me. Bye. Bye, my love. I ended the call, but I think they hung up before I even said the last word. What a great call. I had to pause to calm myself down so I wouldn't laugh out loud. When I opened the door, I saw Shelley with an ashy face. Who was that? I had to stop myself from blabbing. Jake from State Farm. Instead, I told the truth. I thought it was an important call I was expecting, but it turned out to be some guy pretending to be the IRS and demanding that I buy gift cards. It's really sad that scammers are trying to get people to believe this. It even makes me sick to my stomach. I guess I'll have to heat up the food a bit now. What a waste of time. Shelley gave me a suspicious look as I passed by, heading for the kitchen. I started whistling a cheerful tune for good measure back at the table. Shelley looked at me in disgust and muttered, "That didn't sound like a rogue call." "Oh, so you think that's what it was? Were you eavesdropping?" "I thought you said confidentiality was important after the calls from your sister." We sat in silence and ate until Shelley put down her fork and said emphatically, "I don't want you to go out with your girlfriend this weekend." She looked at me with. I looked up at her and calmly stated, "What do you think I should do when you're out on a date? Stay home and do some knitting?" My facial expression turned into a hard grin, and my voice became rumbling. "Listen to me very carefully. I have options too. If you want to change what our marriage is going to be, you're going to have to work with me. Marriage is going to be, so don't think I can't play too. We have an equal partnership. If you want to treat me like a sucker and go out on the side, then let's end the relationship and you can find someone who will put up with it." I won't. Shelley frowned angrily and pushed herself away. From the table, I hissed, God, why can't you be like Tony Sirs and accept that your wife wants to have a little fun? Tony lets Darcy have affairs. I guess you should have married Tony. Shelley retired to our bedroom and locked herself in. I sat there and continued eating, but the chicken and orange sauce suddenly lost all its flavor. I packed up the rest of the food and put it away in the fridge. I thought about breaking into the bedroom and trashing the place, but decided it was still pretty early and maybe Shelley just needed time to feel the burn. I had made my position clear, and now it was time to wait and see what happened. It was up to her to decide what she wanted. I was sitting on the couch, my stomach rumbling, and I was pondering this. It was definitely a turning point in our marriage. I was hoping that my response to her statement yesterday would make her realize how hurtful it was, and that she would feel all the emotions I was feeling. We'll see about that. I started thinking about what I wanted in the long run. I like this crazy lady, and I was becoming more and more convinced that she had been fed bad fantasies and advice from this Darcy character. A new guy making eyes at her and flattering her might make her lose her focus. In the context of our relationship, I've had other women showing interest in me and flirting with me. I'm not young Antonio Banderas, but I'm not stupid, so I know how that can affect someone if she keeps this up. We're in trouble, but I hope that my attempt to play up the drama had opened her eyes to. On the other hand, I decided to take the initiative. I looked up divorce information in our state and it was clear that we would split everything 50-50ths. Since we both made about the same amount of money, we had no children. The house was small and there was no mention of equity. I filled out and printed a divorce petition and then looked into a prenuptial agreement as a way to establish new rules as our game was changing. I was pretty shaken up, but at least we were about to have a very serious conversation around the table. I'm tired of just going along with things. I think her statement yesterday was just to test the waters and see what happens. I don't think she's done anything to destroy our marriage yet. However, I'm not going to agree to a reconciliation if she's already cheated. I've been hanging around, not really doing anything, just waiting. I gave Shelley some space to think. I waited for about an hour and a half, and then I heard the bedroom door open and Shelley come into the living room. I could tell from her footsteps that her demeanor had changed. Can I talk to you? She braced herself, and her voice was quiet and remorseful. It was a far cry from what it was last night. I sat down next to her and tried to sound as open and receptive as possible. I patted the couch next to me as a sign of invitation. Bryce, I realize I've been acting stupid. I almost gasped at those words. How far had things gone? Was it really over between us? I remained motionless, and I was so shocked I couldn't breathe. I'd been flirting and having lunch with a guy at work, and I told him I was going out with him this weekend. A friend of mine, Darcy, encouraged me to do so. She's been having affairs with guys for years, even though she's married herself. She always brags about how much fun it is with her husband. She knows all about it and lets her do it. Darcy told me how to approach you. I planned an entire speech and even prepared responses to arguments you might make to get you to let me do something very selfish. I'm sorry. I was shocked when you got excited and immediately agreed. I was even more shocked when I found out you had someone waiting to take my place. I was crushed. But how could I argue with that? You hurt me. I went to bed, but I couldn't sleep, thinking about how cruel that was of you. Somewhere in the night, I realized that's exactly what I did to you. You didn't pretend to be hurt. I could see and feel your point of view. You were just turning everything upside down. I felt the weight of that. She grinned stupidly and said, You actually hit me hard. Then she continued, Today, I went over everything in my head and almost came to the conclusion that you made it all up until that phone call. Could you really do that? When I tried to pull myself together, you hit me with your conversation. I realized we were on the brink of disaster. I feel like an absolute idiot. I married you for many reasons, and every day you live up to my expectations. I was pleased with myself because someone I was getting compliments and playing along. It was like being back in school and being groomed. It was exciting, and I felt special. Then you showed me that you were special too, and I could lose you. I can't, and I don't want to let that happen. I love you and only you. I just canceled my weekend plans. I made it clear that I was done with him. I don't think we'll ever see each other again, just so you know. I swear on everything that is sacred to me that I have never had any contact with him. I have never cheated on you, but I was close to it. I know you may have doubts because of my behavior last night. I said, How can I get you to cancel the weekend and come back to me? I need you to be there for me, only me. There were tears in her eyes, and I was finally able to take a breath. I thought for a moment and decided that we couldn't just go back. We've got to bridge a chasm that's opened up. It's going to take some work, but we can do it. How can we trust each other again? Even though you say you can, how do we know what the other is really up to? I don't trust you. I don't think you're being honest with me. I think you're just putting off seeing Jason Marsden or someone else to find other ways and times to carry out your plan. You canceled just to get me to cancel my plans. How am I supposed to know you're not doing the same thing again? It's hard to know when trust is broken, and if it can be rebuilt. I don't want to have to test you for the rest of our married life. I said this in an angry, raised voice and felt myself choking with emotion. She looked shocked and said, "So, do you know his name? How did you find out? When did you find out from whom?" I didn't answer. I let her take a moment to process the news. When she sat down, she was at arm's length, but now she moved in tight and hugged me. "I apologize, but can we just be ourselves for a while until we find a solution? I don't want to think about it anymore. Today is really hard," she whispered. Let's spend one night together and then think about it tomorrow. I just want to feel you close to me, to keep some hope that you won't push me away. I'm sorry I brought us here. God, I don't want it to end. Please." I leaned back and let her snuggle against my chest. We breathed together and just held each other without saying anything. Despite our physical closeness, there was still a big divide. There was a lot to overcome and rebuild, if that was even possible. When we finally got into bed, she started kissing and caressing me, but the gap remained. I fell asleep for a few minutes and woke up to hear her crying softly and repeating, "I'm such a fool. Darcy, why did I listen to you?" We slept, but there was still a lot of tension. I know we both woke up in the night feeling pretty miserable. It was a long night. Thursday promised to be a difficult day of waiting and thinking. We both left for work with the promise of a serious, hard conversation waiting for when we got home. We agreed to just eat the Chinese food that was left in the fridge from last night, and to avoid wine or beer tonight. This conversation needed to be approached with a clear head, and here it was, the moment of reckoning. I organized the two documents, the divorce petition and the prenuptial agreement. I put the two documents, one labeled A and the other B, into folders. I placed them on the table face down. Shelley looked at the folders and looked at me with some trepidation. I looked directly at her and waited for her to start. I decided that she had made this mess herself, and she should start to clean it up. She did, though. "I'm sorry. I'm really sorry for opening this door. I just want to close it and lock it forever. Do you think you can just forgive and forget? Can we go back to what we had and move on? We all make mistakes. I know I've made a really big one. What do you think?" She smiled hopefully and waited for my answer. My answer was no. She looked depressed. "Shelley, over the past couple of weeks, you've lied to me about calls from your sister that were actually from someone else. You were planning to cheat on me. You admitted to flirting, going out to dinner and getting close to someone else, while keeping it all a secret from me. This is not acceptable behavior for a man to confess his love and loyalty to me. You have made me question my trust in you. Going forward, I see only two options. If we can't agree, the other option is divorce. We don't have a lot going on, so we can split everything 50-50ths. Divorce, Shelley shrieked. No, you can't be serious. I can't live without you, I'm sorry." I waited for her to calm down. "Shelley, I don't want this either, but I'm serious. If we can't agree on how to rebuild trust in each other, I'll have to go ahead with my plan," whimpered Shelley. "What about you? I know you lied to me about your phone call yesterday. It wasn't a call from a scammer. It's broken. We'll talk about that call in a few minutes after we come to an agreement. Can we at least agree to put together an acceptable agreement? I want to emphasize that this agreement is something we both have to adhere to." Shelley took her copy of the agreement and mumbled something. "It's pretty strict here. The phone has to be on at all times, as does the tracking app, so everyone can see where everyone else is. If you leave the office, text your spouse where you're going and when you'll be back. And don't forget to make sure you keep your phone with the tracking app on, in case your spouse shows up at that location unannounced to check in. If you go anywhere after work or on other occasions with others without your spouse, tell exactly where you're going and keep your phone on. I understand that our leash is very short, but we need to make this work. It's a pretty short list, and I really hope we can come to a point where we both consider this sort of thing unnecessary." She set her copy aside and looked at me intently. "I can't believe we've gotten to this point, but I understand. I'm sorry I hurt you and made you not trust me. Basically, I agree with everything, but I want to. I'd like to add a couple more positive things, like spending more time together, going on dates just the two of us, and actually talking about everything we're doing and feeling and dreaming about. I want us to get stronger. I really want us to get through this. I couldn't help but smile and agree. We wrote down some changes and both of us signed our new agreement. Shelley grinned, kind of stupidly, and said we should probably add that we agree to make serious love on a very regular basis, so that we'll be tired enough or too in love to look at anyone else. We wrote that down as an addendum. I told you she wants a lot. After the meeting, she got up from the table, walked over and sat on my lap. She kissed me passionately, with love and hope in her eyes. She told me everything would be fine, and that she still wanted me to be her wife. I took her face in my hands and said I still wanted her to remain my wife. We're going to be okay. I want to hear about that phone call. I pulled out my phone and played her the recording. You're a sneaky one. I'll never cross swords with you again. We were supposed to fall in love right away. That's what we agreed to in writing several months ago. Since then, we've gotten along well. But we've only rarely used the terms of the agreement, except for love. We've actually helped us grow closer. We've shown up unannounced at a few lunch meetings and been greeted cheerfully by your wife. She's welcomed us with open arms and introduced us to everyone. It's really paid off. We spend a lot more time together and tell each other about everything. Life is good. We were sitting on the couch discussing plans for the upcoming 3-day weekend when Shell's phone rang. She frowned and muttered, I wonder why my boss is calling me so late at night. It was a Saturday night when Shell's phone rang. She frowned and muttered, I wonder why my boss is calling me so late at night. Hi, Betty, she said. What a surprise. Everything's all right, she said. I can hear a conversation coming from the phone, but I can't make out what they're saying. You're kidding, she said. When did this happen? There was more mumbling from the phone. I'll contact mine immediately, she said. I expect you here at 7 a.m. tomorrow. Betty Shelley was taken aback when she heard the news. She sat silently in the large conference room, staring at her phone with a concerned look on her face. What's wrong, baby? You look shaken up. Are you okay? Shelley looked at me with the same concerned look on her face and answered, I'll be there tomorrow morning. Everyone in Human Resources is scheduled to attend a meeting to hear about the changes to the employee handbook that the lawyers have demanded to give more credibility to the non. It seems that Darcy was caught in bed with Jason Mazen at her home. Her husband Tony caught them, and Jason started swearing at Tony and making fun of him. Tony went into a rage, dragged Jason out of the house by his hair, and began beating him severely. Jason is in hospital, and they are not sure if he is going to be okay. Jason's face is badly broken, and he will lose at least one eye. Darcy tried to stop Tony, but ended up getting knocked down and losing a bunch of teeth in the fight. She is also in the hospital. Tony is in jail. I raised an eyebrow, looking at Shelley. She caught my gaze and raised her hand to stop me. Don't say that. Please don't say what you're thinking. I've got it all figured out. I was going to follow Darcy down that rabbit hole. It seems that Tony wasn't as supportive of Darcy's actions as she thought. I couldn't stay silent about what I think of Darcy and Tony. They're a bit older than us, and Tony probably had more to lose in a divorce than we did, given that we were still in the early stages of our relationship. That's probably why he stayed silent and let it all happen. I guess he's reached a tipping point. Shelley nodded lightly and poked me in the chest. I told her not to come and comment. I laughed at her reaction, but I felt bad that 3 lives were affected because a couple of people wanted to change the rules. I'm glad we're not in the same situation as them. I can only hope that we have both learned from their mistakes. Currently, our game has changed, but perhaps the time will come when we can live by the old rules again.